Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Wellbeing From Me to We digital event, hosted by the CMI South East Regional Board. My name is Mel, and I'm an events delivery coordinator here at CMI, and I'll shortly be handing over to Gillian to begin this evening's event. If you have any questions during the session, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can during the Q&A. This evening's session is being recorded, and it will be shared with you tomorrow for those who have booked to attend. The event recording will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Gillian, Regional Stakeholder Lead, CMI South East Board, to begin.
Thank you, Mel, and good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be supporting the session here this evening and to further welcome you all to the event with myself and Magda Flores. So over the next 30 minutes, we will be joined by Magda, where we will understand more about urban wellbeing. And following this, we'll have an additional 10 minutes for further Q&A, where we'll be able to progress the submitted questions for answering and for some more discussion. So during the course of this 30 minutes, please do send through any questions that may arise in your mind that you want to put forward. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the side screen to see what questions are coming in, where we will be able to interject throughout the half-hour presentation. So in terms of urban wellbeing and what we're going to be covering this evening. So we're delighted to have Magda Flores with us, and Magda has 27 years of experience in project management of infrastructure projects, business change, digitalization and wellbeing. She's worked across many sectors to include aviation, rail, water, highways, finance, customer resilience, and even working in the disability care sector. Magda has also experience of working across the UK, Mexico, Bolivia, and Argentina, and also the USA. She is a fellow of the CMI, and she also holds an MBA from the University of Surrey and a BSc in Information Technology with a major in finance. So we're delighted to bring Magda onto the screen this evening. Hello there, Magda, and welcome.
Hello, thank you. It's lovely to see you today, Gillian.
Brilliant, lovely, and a lovely evening that we have indeed. So, Magda, I think really just to kick off, urban wellbeing, what is it?
Yes, let's start by the well-being part of it. Well-being is a state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy, which is awesome. That's absolutely superb. But we are not floating. We are not on an island because we are surrounded by air, by greenery, by rivers and lakes, and by people. And I think that's why we need a concept like urban well-being, because urban well-being is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy in the environment we live in. So we cannot forget that we live in a particular environment. And that is absolutely key. One of the things that we have been doing is, for example, relating it to what the National Health Service is doing in terms of CLAN. So yes, we do lots of connect, we talk to people, we socialize, we learn, which is the acronym CL, learn something new, do exercise as in be active, we notice, we do mindfulness. And the shift in the paradigm is when we move from me to we, and therefore we actually give. So the moment that we give to the community, we then get much more back. And that is absolutely the most important thing, to give.
Brilliant. And obviously when you give, you're giving back, and then from that you get the satisfaction from that, which in turn helps well-being. So Magda, I understand that you've got some good sort of case studies to share with us this evening around what you've witnessed happening, and also some work that you have done around to actually develop your own framework around urban wellbeing that you do as part of your organisation as Urban Wellbeing Solutions. So I understand you're going to share some slides with us now that will help showcase that for us.
Yes, but first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Colette. And because you were saying, what have I seen in my community? So Colette is a lovely lady who was actually wanting to rent out one of the rooms in her house. And in order to do that, like many of us, we have a room full of clutter. So she decided to rent something somewhere so that she could actually empty that room and rent it out, which is a very good thing to do. So she finds this garage. And the moment that she finds the garage, she's obviously shifting boxes left, right, and center, obviously incredibly tired. And she goes to the patio, this patio that she's rented the patio and the garage, and sits down and listens to people walking by and thinks, wow, this is awesome. She could see the sunshine, she could actually enjoy the patio. And she thought, isn't it amazing? I mean, she could hear children going to the nearby shops and thought, well, if we could only share this space, right? And if we can start with the slide, please, we can actually see there the photo of the Citery. The Citery is Colette's place in Surrey. It is in Reigate, near Reigate Station. And as you can tell, she's actually set up a very nice place, very, very relaxed, loads of tables, and people can turn up. And her idea is, well, sometimes we want to have a coffee, right? But occasionally we may not drink the same coffee than everybody else, or we may not be able to afford a coffee. So therefore, if you could just bring in your own drink and feel happy. And also, one of the important things about this place is that as you arrive, Colette talks to you and you can actually find books. Because if we think about, for example, a place like a library, right? We shouldn't be talking in a library, although some of us do, but we shouldn't really. So when we go to a place like this, you can actually hire books, you can hire the table, you can work, you are welcome to actually have a meeting there. And the idea around that is a community is trying to find out what was necessary. So in Reigate, there are lots of coffee shops. So this one is more for the community, but it is also trying to understand that sometimes when people actually require social cohesion, then we can identify that at the very bottom, we need to feel a level of worth. So if you imagine a pyramid, the bottom layer is the acceptance that my community has for me and how worthy or how valuable do I feel. And then if I feel I belong, then we're having a higher level of social cohesion. But the moment that, like here, you see that musicians turn up on a Friday and that people want to actually socialize and people want to participate, we then begin to understand that the highest level of social integration is participation. And the beauty of this particular example is that actually when Colette was trying to do this, she actually went to Surrey County Council and said, hello, you know what, this is a patio. I haven't got excess money, but I would like to have a community space and would actually like to have a tent or some kind of marquee. Would you help me out? So when you have this place, you have the people and you have people that actually are trying to get that level of influence. And moreover, that we can actually create change through an intervention, like in this case, Surrey County Council providing a little bit of funding, then we can actually see a level of change. And that means that it is beneficial for the individual as it is beneficial for the group. And when that happens, we are actually helping the community, but we are also helping a level of economic sustainability, because there will be people that have jobs. If you have a job and you want to go to the co-op or to the corner shop to buy something, then you are incentivizing that economy, as well as being able to share. And if we are chatting with other people, then we have that level of mental health that also will mean that it gives us net savings. Because you can imagine, if we are not very well and we need support from the NHS or from whatever medical system, it would actually mean that it costs the community one way or another, right? So that net saving is a real benefit. And we can see particularly when we have a level of accessibility. Now, what do I mean by accessibility? And this one is one that I love, because it means having agency, having the freedom to make decisions, and having the freedom to be in a safe and suitable environment. I'll give you an example, right? Just down the road, 5 houses down the road, one of the young lads, he actually wanted to become a pilot. And now that he's doing his last year of A-levels, which is high school, just before he goes to university, he actually wasn't allowed by the family to become a pilot. This was pre-pandemic days. So he had to become an engineer because that's what was acceptable to the family. Now, that is still happening. Now, if this is happening to a young man, it can happen to anyone, any age. And we have to have this level of accessibility, which sometimes we may not recognize. We may not recognize that these boundaries are blurred. And having that ability to say, well, actually, I need to socialize, I need to have a coffee with people, that is great. And having a place like this, which is quite innovative, it's something that is particular to that community. Mm. And that's why each community is independent and needs to be assessed with its own merits.
Yes, certainly it's creating a space for obviously relationships to foster and connections to be built. Which brings me on to, we have had a question that has came in from Bill, Magda, and that's how does a sense of place affect or effect our well-being? So it's how does a sense of place affect or effect our well-being?
It completely does. Because if you look at that flower, what it does say is, okay, anything that affects me, such as any of those 5 interactions, whether it's a bad economics or innovation that doesn't exist, or an interaction where I cannot relate to my husband or my kids, if there's an issue there, it will affect me. It will affect me if my dear neighbor is ill. That is something that is something that will actually have a knock-on effect on me. But that touches on a very interesting point, which is the physical spaces. And if we go to the next slide, we can see the physical spaces. We are referring to 5 different physical spaces. And absolutely, how I feel will be influenced by, for example, the amount of green spaces that we have. So if you look at the top photo, that one is there with 2 young people actually enjoying what is actually biodiversity and natural capital. So natural capital is where we have our stock of renewable natural resources that give us benefits. And the advantage of this natural capital is that it helps us identify the net impact on the environment and society. So both natural capital and biodiversity will tell us everything that surrounds us and what have we got. If we have a polluted river, right, that is actually bringing down the numbers that we have in terms of having a natural capital that is perhaps not what it should be. So it is very important. So these are our green spaces and our blue spaces. Another very important thing is, for example, talking about transport and communications spaces. Now, if you look at the second photo, that one actually refers to the link between Oxford and Cambridge Arch. And what happens, as you know, is since 2019, the government with various consultancies are working very hard on making sure that this corridor is actually developed. I know this is a small photo, but the actual corridor is massive, and it's trying to link those 2 key areas. And this is because it is of a key economic priority for government to do that. At the moment, we have some 4 million people in that area with 2 million jobs. And the idea is that in the next 10, 20 to 30 years, we will be actually generating more than 100 billion worth of economic output each year. And actually, we will have another 1 million jobs. So answering the question earlier is, well, would actually having a job and being able to get to work and actually being able to access with transport work and green and blue spaces, does that benefit my mental well-being? Well, of course it does. And also having utilities, making sure that we have water, making sure that we have built and virtual space, that is super important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? We do need to have that level of link.
So this sort of brings on the next question then that has came in from Jan. And Jan asks, what do you see as the principles of integrating well-being into urban regeneration of property and brownfield sites?
That's a very interesting question. Simply because, I mean, we have in Urban Wellbeing Solutions, we have a series of courses. And it's funny the brownfield sites have been mentioned, because we actually have a case study for New York. And in that course, you will see that the first thing, as we were saying earlier, is identifying the need of the community. So what does the community need? And in this particular case, for example, the community needs residential area, and it also needs green space. But of course, they didn't have the money. So what the mayor of New York says is, please, we need to sell this plot of land. And of course, they cannot sell it because it's rubble. It's absolutely dreadful. So what people end up doing is they only take 1 mile, and within that mile, people clean it up and actually make it look amazing with superb landscape gardens. So what that does is that, of course, developers say, of course, this is prime land, and they buy it and, of course, begin to develop it. And you have the most amazing towers being built for residential, because that's what's required in order to bring diversity, in order to bring very nice level of living for everyone in a very sustainable way. So yes, absolutely. To do the brownfield sites and to convert them into accommodation or business areas, we actually need to make sure that we have the need, that we satisfy that need, that we comply with all the regulations, because brownfield sites have very tight regulations in terms of the damage that has already occurred to the ground, and they have to be properly drained and checked that it is actually suitable for people to live there. And we also need to make sure that we get feedback. And one very important thing is to actually have a level of stakeholder engagement. And that cannot be minimized in any kind of way, because if we don't include the local population, if we don't include government, if we don't include every single group that has an interest, I tell you what, it's not going to happen, because there will be so many barriers all the way through. So that's another of the courses that we actually are involved in. So check that out.
Okay, so you were saying about obviously engaging other stakeholder groups, but we have a question from Caroline, and she's more interested in how you would actually engage individuals, Magda. So she asks, how do you engage individuals by offering the opportunity to develop their own well-being space if given an area and a blank canvas?
Absolutely. Hello, Caroline. Yes, there's a concept which is about community budget. And that one is a lovely concept. And I'll tell you why I love it. Because, of course, each local borough or entity has a certain budget. And if we say, for example, that a percentage, I don't know, a 1% or whatever percentage is for the community, then we can say we are allocating this budget. What can you do with it? And giving people the opportunity, often through a hub, or often through, for example, being able to develop a strategy, and within that strategy have some level of presence. That presence is in a hub, or it could be, for example, in a market. So if you have a table at a market and you say, hey guys, this is what we are aiming to do. If you want to be involved, please put a bit of information here and we will contact you and we will start developing this group. And by the way, we need an awful lot of volunteers and we need your time, we need your commitment, and you can define roles and responsibilities. Now, of course, this special hub could actually also be online. You know, there's nothing to say that you couldn't have it on Facebook or that you couldn't have it on a website. I mean, if you see the London mayor and what they have done in London, is exactly that. I mean, they have set up a campaign. They say, please, Londoners, tell us what you want to do and give us your feedback. And the very important thing there is to deliver on the promise. So whatever that you have promised from the very beginning in your strategy, you go through all your stages of strategy and then make sure that you actually deliver on those and that everything, all the feedback is there for all the stakeholders and keep everybody informed. So yes, that's what I would say.
Lovely, thank you. We've got another question. Thank you everyone for sending in the questions. We've got a question from Graham. And Graham's asking, do you have any practical examples of wellbeing initiatives that companies have introduced, and have they measured their benefits? We know it's so important, Magda, to measure. So any practical examples there?
Well, absolutely. In fact, if you go back to the photo very quickly, the slide number 2, you will see that the third photo is one with a barge. And this one is the ocean cleanup. And that one is a link between the ocean cleanup and Coke. So you would say, well, Coke, what is Coke doing here? And what is the well-being element? Well, they have a commitment now to be able to actually take loads of the plastics, because of course there are some very, very high numbers. 80% of the plastic that ends up in the sea actually are plastics that come from 1,000 rivers globally. So the idea is that between 2021, 2022, all these 1,000 rivers will actually gather the plastic that is in the water and it will be reduced. So as the barge goes by, it sucks in the water, it traps the plastic, and then, of course, it is recycled, hopefully in more bottles and not being disposed, with the idea to then go into what is called the circular economy. So that's an example of well-being. And now how it is measured is, well, you have targets. Coke has targets for 2030. And of course, it's saying, okay, I would like to, for every bottle that I produce, I remove from the environment. So that's one of the measures.
Thank you. So some urban well-being examples there, folks. Okay. So we've got some more questions that have came in. A question has came in from Joe. Can people gain similar benefits from relaxed, informal communities within workspaces?
Oh, yes, of course. Can people gain similar benefits from relaxed informal communities? Yes. So, for example, sometimes when we actually want to go for a walk, and I will tell you this, just about 2 hours ago, I very quickly thought, okay, I have a little half an hour. So, of course, I live near some hills, and you go for a walk, and I went on my own, but there were people in small groups. There were groups of young people. There were people walking their dogs. And of course, it is a very informal way to actually walk about. Now, occasionally, when I need a different space, I grab my laptop and I go to Costa and I actually work there. Or with Colette, which is a shared workspace where we can have a little conversation and then I can focus on my work. So informal communities, you can actually do an awful lot. And I tell you why, because we are social beings, many of us, and some more, some less. Some people just need to go to a coffee shop, see other people, put their headsets and work, and that's good enough. Other people will need to go to a place like Regis without advertising, but any office space where you have different people and actually just to say hello. When you go and get your coffee, you can smile. Just by smiling and making eye contact, one is actually feeling much better, because then that even, I tell you what, some occasionally, my son works in the same office where I am. So, but you can actually see that when I am working and I am there, he will like very quickly continue to work, right? The same with my daughter. She may have just checked out Discord or any social media, but if you're around, people feel like, oh, I should really be working. And that helps everyone. So yes, I do believe that shared spaces actually help an awful lot. It's and have you noticed that if you are just staying at home and it is very easy to just wear a t-shirt and jeans and that's that. But if you're going to a shared space, one might wear the same t-shirt, just perhaps a little bit tucked in or probably with a little lipstick. So that will actually make us feel better, which means that we do want to socialize and have that exchange.
Lovely, thank you. We still have some more questions coming in, and I'm conscious that you do have another slide to show us as well, Magda. So we have a question that's come in from Steve Duncan. So we'll do Steve's question, and then we'll move on to your next slide after that. So his question is there anywhere that you would suggest exemplifies the improvements and benefits that you talk of?
Oh,
Anywhere
well,
that
yes.
would you say is best practice? This is a showcase of what is possible.
Oh, well, we have loads. I have two that very quickly come to mind. One is Malcolm Gladwell mentioned something that actually happened in New York, and how that was actually something quite interesting. You have the Italian family that goes to New York, and what they begin to do is some assimilate, and more Italians continue to come down. I think that was in the 50s. And of course, when they do that, some didn't assimilate, some stayed together like families, very robust families, trying to continue with the way they eat, with all their beautiful salads and meeting every Sunday, right? And socializing. The others tended not to eat together, to become like any other US family, everybody very busy doing their own stuff. And what was interesting was later on, when a GP, a medical practitioner, leaves that town, Rosetta, and eventually, after many years, decides to come back. And talking to one of his medical friends, says, you know, do you realize that we never get people that are sick or ill from this Rosetta town? And they think, hold on a minute, that is pretty weird. That is not normal. Let's start investigating. So they continue to investigate. And the moment that they do that, they have to go back because the data doesn't make sense. How come other people that are in nearby villages obviously have the normal diseases and normal illnesses, but this particular town doesn't? So what it seems to come down to is the fact that if we are in a tight, knitted community, whether it is family-based or community-based, we actually feel better. Because if we are not feeling better, you know, the uncle, the cousin will say, hey, come on, let's go for a walk. You can walk. Okay, you are a bit tired. Let's do a shorter walk. Or let's go and get an ice cream. And, you know, emotionally, we just feel much better. So the learning from the Rosetta town was we do certainly need to be in a society. We need to be in a community. And of course, if you look at other places, like we have been doing case studies and working with Tower Hamlets, and you can see that they are a very neat society, and there are some things that you would expect that they would be, you know, their economic situation is quite difficult at times. However, they are surviving very well as a group, and that is a very positive thing, and that is quite difficult in this day and age. But you know, they are working hard and coming together with loads of different initiatives. So that's quite neat.
Excellent, good. So do you want to show us the final layer within your little diagram, Magda? I understand we've got another slide there.
Oh yes, this one actually it's like a summary of it all. It basically tells us that our well-being, the shift from me to we, it's because we have 5 different spaces, the ones in gray, and we have 5 different interactions, the ones that you can see in white. And of course, what tends to happen in order to get to this urban well-being is actually a combination of it all. And what we have to be quite cognizant about is that what we may need, for example, in one place in Cornwall is quite different from what we may need from South Spain, very different from what we may need in Sweden. And we may think, hey, come on, but Sweden is quite stable. Well, yes, it is, but we can still, in a local community, we are able to look at this, to analyze each and every one of the petals and say, okay, have we got everything that we need there? And could we be better? And therefore, as we said earlier, what we need, or what people needed in Rosetta, was obviously quite different. It was giving an example of how a community actually works very well, And obviously how, for example, with Colette, she was providing mental health and physical health in a way to a community that actually is doing very well in all its spaces. So it is a very interesting element to be able to bring all this together. In urban wellbeing solutions, we actually go through the parameters, because there are 3 parameters in each of the petals, so 30 parameters in total, that actually helps us look at the stats. There are millions of stats. We encourage people to use the stats that are already there in order to bring out what is the need for a particular community. You are.
There we go.
There
Yes,
you go. It happened to you this time.
We do have some more questions here for you.
Yeah.
We do have someone that said hello from Kenya, so it's lovely to see we've got a nice international audience here today, and it would be interesting to have some questions coming through from their perspective, actually. So we have another one from Joe, and that is, are any of the 5 types of physical spaces more important to our well-being than others?
That is a very interesting one. For example, if we are in a particular region and we don't have water to drink, and the water to drink is not actually clean and it is making people ill, then that is certainly a very important space. Now, however, it depends on the community, because for some other communities that are really isolated, you might actually say, well, hold on, we haven't got Wi-Fi. And at this, particularly in the last year, people have been communicating through digital media. So that is quite important. So I think we need to have all spaces. It's the same as the interactions. Is one interaction more important than other? Well, actually, they are all super linked. So no, I don't think so. I think all 5 are important in terms of physical spaces. All 5 interactions are important.
Lovely, thank you. I think this weekend it'll probably be water that is the more important one, with it being set to get a little bit warmer. I think it'll be interesting just to observe what the media picks up with everyone flocking to the blue spaces, which invariably happens when the mercury soars here in the UK. So we do have another question from a Mr. Jez, and he asks, are there any examples of brilliant urban wellbeing pilot projects in UK towns?
Well, at the moment, we are, as I say, looking at working with Save the Children, but that one is in Mexico, and working with, we're working with Tower Hamlets in the UK. So those are things that are ongoing, and we hope to actually do many more. What we would like to promote is actually people taking the flower and using it. And of course, if people wanted to do the next level, we can actually get into the podcasts. I have a few podcasts, Urban Jungle, Jungla Urbana, and you can listen to those. So you don't need input to be able to use those. You just go there to Spotify, Stitcher, or iTunes, or the website, and you can use them. But equally, if you wanted to learn more about them, then please go on to the company's website and sign up for any of the courses, because that will take you through the different parameters and how to use them.
Lovely. You have mentioned again Tower Hamlets. So obviously Surrey was where Colette's sort of garage conversion took place.
Yes.
You've mentioned Tower Hamlets. A question did come in before the event where someone was querying how this impacts with, of course, the COVID restrictions on people coming together and so forth. So what's your thoughts around that? I mean, how has Colette's space managed during obviously the various lockdowns?
Well, it has managed very well. Obviously, at some point, she had to close and she wasn't very happy. But of course, decided to open up with the right elements, right? So we have obviously the QR code. You have to turn up with a face mask and pre-register. And obviously there's a distance between the different tables. So that is something that actually works. And we also have to be quite cognizant of how we do things with the hybrid work, because of course hybrid work is going to change absolutely everything that we are doing. So for example, I started working from home or working online some 20 years ago. So certain market sectors have already been doing working from home for a long time, but obviously others haven't and have just had to adapt. And I think there's an awful lot of work to do. I saw a report from Microsoft who are saying that 40% of people are actually trying to leave their jobs. And that actually affects a lot the people in Generation Z, but also new starters, because of course they haven't met anyone. Most of us have actually met our colleagues face to face, and now we are shifting to working from home. So that is a little bit easier. But also we have people that have been working very, very hard. And that doesn't matter. That is not age dependent. Some young people, some not so young people. And that is affecting the way we are working. So I think bosses have to be a bit cleverer on what to do. And there are loads of things to be done if we wanted to improve quality of work in this day and age. So we have to be very careful. We really, as managers, we have to talk to our people.
Yes, and just obviously on that, the new updated Better Managers Manual, which everyone will have access to directly on the CMI site, does give a new updated account of how managers can actually work with their team members to ensure that their health and well-being is maintained, particularly as we move into a new phase of hybrid working, which is strongly surveyed to be the main way forward that organisations are going. We've only got a couple of minutes left, Magda, but what we have got is one question that has came in from Bruce, and I think really just on that thought of hybrid working, how could we support our communities during our lunch hour? So if we're thinking of being back in the workplace, maybe 3 days a week, that lunch hour is going to be really important. So how can we support communities during our lunch hour?
All right. Well, there are a variety of ways. So the one where you've only got 5 minutes, very quickly, you can actually support by providing, if you have a job, by providing support to organizations like charitywater.org. You may want to check that one out, or check Save the Children. The one we are working with is for employability of young people around the world. So that is something quite good. But equally, if at your lunch hour, you are going out and you're going to the supermarket, buy a bag for food banks. Food banks actually need everybody's help. Now, equally, within the office, if one happens to have half an hour, is to say to people, hey, can we just have, there's a little sofa here. Can we just have, of course, distance, and depending on what it is, that is the new requirement or the old requirement, to actually have lunch together, to chat, perhaps not about work, but to chat about anything. And even though we sometimes don't turn up every day, we might say, hey, we are meeting here on a Wednesday at lunchtime. Please join us. And if you can't join us for the whole lunch, half an hour, join us just for a cup of tea and bring your biscuit. And we will talk about your weekend, about socializing, about whatever we need. And whilst at that moment, you can actually organize something, which is very interesting, that I had a conversation in one of the podcasts with a lady that works in Australia, and she's been working for telecoms for a long time, so working from home for a long time. And the idea is that on your tag name, you can actually put a little code, whatever code your team decides. Don't tell your boss, because sometimes we don't want the bosses to know. So whatever this code is, so that when someone sees it on your name, they know that they've got to send you a text or an email to say, hey, how are you doing? Can we chat? Because you are saying, hey, I need some help.
Okay, super. So we've got Just a short bit of time left. We've got someone that's just said hello. Someone's come in from Gibraltar onto the call, which is absolutely great. We have a couple of questions that we're just going to squeeze in here, Magda, before we end. Is urban well-being currently being measured? I'll let you do a short answer to this.
Short, yes. we are working in participation with the Charter Management Institute and together, obviously, with the CIWEM, which is a Chartered Institute of Water and Environmental Management. And they have approved our courses. So they are happy with the level of parameters that we have provided, and we have a big stamp from them. So yes, of course, it has to be, all very sanitized and looked through.
Okay, and we'll look forward to people that go through this learning opportunity to then having the impact of that learning being measured with the action points that they're carrying out as a result of that. And second question there is, which other countries role model urban wellness?
Well, if you listen to one of the podcasts, I had a chat with the lead for the Swedish Halmstad University, and they are absolutely amazing in terms of well-being. They have a master's on lifestyle and well-being, and they do something quite innovative, in my opinion. They actually bring in their students. They put in a panel from government, and they say, okay, now present your case. Actually tell us, how do you see your city operating, and what do you need from these guys? And then government has to say, well, actually, that works, that doesn't work, and they make it happen. So that is, I think, very forward-looking, to be able to bring in the community, to bring in the students, and particularly because they are young people. If we have engagement from the young people, then we've made it, because they will make things happen. And then, of course, we all these have to follow suit.
Lovely, thank you. We've got another question that has just came in, so we want to squeeze it in, Magda. It's from Bryce Norton Buffalo. Cycling has recently been promoted in towns and cities across the UK. I believe this is an example of promoting urban well-being, but how do we ensure that the most marginalised and vulnerable are not forgotten?
Absolutely. Yes, we have, when we do the flower, we have to actually identify those elements. And what is very interesting is that people sometimes just say, oh, by the way, I'm promoting trains or I'm promoting bikes. This is what we need. And then there's no analysis of what actually needs to happen. The moment that we actually go into the nitty-gritty of the data and do data sets and analyze it, then we realize, oh, actually, what we need here is a community space. Or what we need here, for example, I was talking to someone from Buenos Aires, and she did a survey because they started looking at what was needed. And they realized that men actually do 2 journeys a day in the bus, and women do 6. And by the way, women get harassed in the process. So then you sort of think, hold on, we don't need another bus route. What we need is to have safe buses, because women that have money at night, they actually take a taxi. Some women will not be able to afford it. So they will have to either endure the harassment or not go out or work less and earn less. So it is very, very dependent. And I think the study has to be done. And if it is not done properly, we will be spending the money in the wrong thing. And we have to spend the very precious budget that we have in what we really need.
Yeah. I've got a quick question for you, Magda. In towns and cities that I've been in recently, I've observed a sharp increase in motorised scooters. Some towns and cities are providing them, like the Boris bike concept. But what we have got is very fast moving devices, largely on footpaths and moving quite fast through community spaces. Now I can see the people that are riding them have got great smiles on their faces, and it's getting them from A to B very quickly. Do you think this is a sustainable solution from an urban well-being point of view?
I think to make things sustainable, they need to be robust. And they have to come along with a level of discipline. And that discipline sometimes has to come through regulation. It's not that we love regulation, it's simply that if we don't have the rules, as you rightly mentioned, Gillian, people just get on the pavement. So, if I am a lady, with glasses who can't see very well, I might actually bump into someone and then push that person onto a car or whatever it is. So we do need everything. We need discipline, we need the regulation, we need everybody to understand the rules and the risks. And if it is going to help, it's going to help everybody, because even being on a bike, if you don't have the right cycle lanes and the right discipline, then it doesn't work.
Yes, I think my fear is because there's no helmets as well. These individuals, there's going to be someone who's badly injured at some stage. But anyway, Magda, I understand that you actually have one final slide that includes an index. So do we want to just close that off as part of the closure?
Totally, because what we are trying to do is use the Urban Wellbeing Index to say, well, actually, let's shift the paradigm from me to we. This is very important. It is very important to give to the community. And on that note, what can we do? What can you do to help improve the environment where you live? There's an awful lot that can be done. If we don't help, it's because we haven't had the time or the thought to actually go online, because we can help online, we can help physically, we can talk to the borough. You can talk to your company. You could actually, this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, be doing corporate social responsibility, chopping wood and helping clear a path. So imagine, instead of working. So, just get out there and enjoy the nice weather.
Yes, absolutely. It's a chance for people now, as lockdowns are easing across the nation, to think about actually getting out and having a look at what's been going on when they've been locked away, and looking at how they can actually engage with their community, with the physical great outdoors, and ultimately engaging with their well-being. Magda, we've covered a lot of information here this evening. Thank you very much indeed. It's been highly informative. We've been pushed on in our conversation with the great array of questions that have came in from our members and people that have came on the call. So that's absolutely great to see. Thank you everyone for that. Thank you, Magda. And of course, anyone who wants any additional information regarding Magda and what she does, you can see her details on the screen behind her. So Magda, on behalf of the CMI South East Board, I want to extend my thanks to you this evening for sharing this highly innovative and thought-provoking subject area with us. So thank you very much indeed.
Very enjoyable, Gillian. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That is it for today's session, everyone. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you, Gillian, for hosting, and Magda for your insights and expertise around urban wellbeing. If you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat, where you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. If you're not yet a member, you can join our community via the link in the live chat as well, where you can gain full access to our Management Direct portal. You can also sign up to the free CMI newsletter for the latest trends and tips for managers and leaders. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.